The St. Louis Cardinals president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak, I don't think I'm saying that right, but that's how I'm going to say it. He said the Ollie Marmol. Right. Okay. He said Ollie Marmol will be back. Okay. First off, that was surprising to me. And I think a lot of people. But they said the Cardinals are planning on taking a different direction, taking a directional shift, was the phrasing that they used, putting a heavy emphasis back on scouting and player development. Mozeliak said, it's obviously going to be a shift in philosophy. Instead of looking for short-term answers, we're going to try to take more of a long view. So for those of you who don't know, this means they're going to work on overhauling their minor league system because they've been ranked at the bottom third of all of the entire system in the last 2 years, because they've gone away from that and taken the approach of signing big name free agents who have mostly, honestly, been pretty near washed up.
Right.
I don't want to say Nolan Arenado was washed up when he got to St. Louis, but things have not gone well the last few years.
I would concur.
Which is fine. Right? Because he's getting up there. So, whoa, I just got a text from Brig
on my fantasy team.
I just got a text from Brig. He said the Pete Rose just died.
What?
Holy cow. I got to see if that refreshes on my news on my app.
Yeah.
Holy cow. This is... I got to check this.
Yeah.
It's died at age 83. Whoa. Holy cow. We are going to have to address that on Thursday, I think. Breaking news when you get this tomorrow. But holy cow.
That is
real
crazy.
Quick, Jason, as a Phillies fan, what does Pete Rose mean to you? Or is it almost like secondary?
So with Pete, and obviously with Pete, there's the good and there's a lot of bad. There's some good. Without Pete being on part of that 79 to 83 team, because that was the time he was with him, I don't think Mike Schmidt comes into his own the way he did without Pete Rose being there to push him. And Schmidt credits Pete with being the person to kind of force him to push even harder than he was. Pete was in a lot of ways the final piece of the puzzle for the Phils to get over that hump, because the Phils were very dominant in the mid to late 70s as far as an NL East team. They were a powerhouse, but they just could never get it done in the playoffs to make it to that next level of the World Series. So the fact that they had someone with the experience and the knowledge of Pete, and he was able to really push their star player in Schmidt, I mean, that season doesn't happen without Pete Rose. Unfortunately, in the last few years, he's made appearances at Phil's games and has burnt some bridges on live TV during that. You don't make fun of John Kruk's cancer diagnosis from the 90s and come away scot-free. So Pete was kind of a non-entity in the last few years because of that. But you don't have the 80 season without Pete Rose.
Yeah, I think, that makes sense. I think most of us just consider Pete Rose a Cincinnati Red,
right?
That the time in Philly was just kind of an afterthought, but like you said, it worked out. It went well for everybody. So
I think the real afterthought was his time in the Expos.
Yep. That's the one. Sorry. Okay, let's get back to the Cardinals. So where were we? We were talking about how they've gone.
They were changing their system,
changing their philosophy from signing big name free agents. Talking about Nolan Arenado out of his prime by the time, or not necessarily by the time he got there, but shortly after he got there. Kind of like the Albert Pujols to Anaheim thing, just the opposite direction. But I thought the most shocking thing about this whole thing was that Ollie Marmol, who's been with the Cardinals since 2022, has managed the team to a 274 and 239 record. Okay, so 8 games over 500. Most of that success came in 2022 when they were 93 and 69. Right, so you finished, what is that, 24 games over 500? Yeah, that's going to help that's going to help your overall record. So,
my thought on this is maybe they're keeping Marmol around for another season to see what happens with him and their focus on primarily younger, less expensive players. Is he someone that can mold these young players into being something? Or was it just happenstance that he had that really good year in 2022?
yeah, that could be. And it could just be like a transition year too. Because today, actually, they came out, like, spent all this together. Then I saw this other story come out today where Chaim Bloom is actually going to be replacing Mozeliak after the 2025 season. So their president of baseball operations is a lame duck for this entire year. Or maybe
And
he's
then
transitioning. I don't know. But they're going to bring in Chaim Bloom to replace him, or as Briggs says, Chaim Bloom.
it's Chaim.
As I said, didn't I say Chaim Bloom?
You
I
said
Briggs
Chaim.
says Chaim.
You said it right.
Okay. Yeah, Briggs says Chaim.
He also says Kybert too. So
right. And Pasan.
I think Kybert every time I see the player too. That's the worst part.
I know.
But it could be that, yeah, Marmol is also, a lame duck manager until Bloom takes over and hires whomever he wants.
Right, because obviously he's going to. But
I mean, we could see Showalter back.
You know who could end up in St. Louis? Skip Schumacher.
That's true.
Maybe he takes a year off and then ends up in St. Louis with Chaim Bloom.